Hi there. My name is Denise Hurd, and welcome back to another episode of How They See Us. If you're tuning in for the first time, I'm so glad you're here. How They See Us is a conversation with people about how they are seen in the communities that they work and that they live in. And if you're not new here, welcome back. I am so glad that you can make it. So, I guess I would be remiss if I didn't start off by saying Happy Black History Month. I know the month is almost over, but it's been a happy month. And I'm so glad to celebrate this month and all that it brings to our community and to us as Black people. This month is actually one of my favorites because we get to celebrate Black history, what it is. And then also we get to debunk some of the myths about what it's not. And there's so much more to our history than trauma. And I don't know about you, but I'm tired of talking about the trauma that we've experienced as Black people. We know of our trauma, and yeah, we do need to talk about it, but there are so many other things that we should be talking about and we should be addressing with respect to our experiences as Black people. So, today I wanted to shed some light on what's beautiful about Black History Month and also talk about our achievements and contributions that we've done in everyday life. And I guess I also want us to kind of get some smarts about history, about our history, and speak from a more informed perspective. I think that's what it's really about. So today, I made the decision to invite two intelligent and unapologetically Black guests who I admire tremendously. And they are doing wonderful, wonderful things in our community. And so I enjoy talking to them. They offer very unique perspectives to me about the Black experience in America. And so I thought I'd bring them here. And so the first is a new friend, actually. She's absolutely amazing. She's Dr. Fletcher, Dr. Charlene Fletcher. Hello, Dr. Fletcher. How are you?
Hello, my dear. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm gonna let you tell the people a little bit about yourself in just a second because I need to bring my other partner into this conversation because he is a PR unicorn. What's up, Lamar Holiday?
Hello, Denise Hurd. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How you doing? You
Doing
doing
well. Doing
good,
good.
good. Well, I'm so happy to see both of you all. As you can tell, I'm like over the moon about the two of you all. And so I have so many questions that I want to ask you all about, Black History Month and being Black and all that goes with it. But I need you to tell the people a little bit about yourself. And so, Lamar, I'm going to be a traditionalist and let ladies go first. And I'm going to hand the baton over to Dr. Fletcher to share a little bit about herself.
Absolutely. I am excited to be here. I am Charlene Fletcher. I have a PhD in U.S. history from Indiana University. I am the curatorial director at Conner Prairie. I'm also affiliate faculty in Africana Studies and History at IUPUI. I'm born and raised here in Indianapolis, but lived all over. And before I came back home to Indianapolis in 2014, I lived in New York City, where I was responsible for leading, at that time, the largest prison reentry um, program on the Eastern Seaboard. So I have an interesting background, both in criminal justice as well as I've been teaching in higher education for the past 10 years now. So that's who I am.
She's a lot more. She's just being modest, but we don't have enough time to go into all her credential. We'll be here next week come Sunday. So, thank you. Thank you for sharing a bit about yourself. Lamar, I'm going to hand it off to you.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. So, my name is LaMar Holiday. I am the Chief Executive Officer for the Holiday Collaborative Agency.
Okay, is that you? Is that your
Yes,
thing?
that's me.
Okay, two
That's me.
snaps, two snaps.
Full time now. Yes. Um, Indianapolis native. With Ripple Rocket, with Ripple
Okay.
for high school.
Rebuff
Um,
Braves, rebuff Braves. Whoop, whoop.
Okay. Shout out. So I got my start actually in journalism before I got into PR. Got my broadcast journalism degree from Eastern Illinois University, and was a reporter and fill-in anchor at stations in Illinois, Texas, and here in Indiana, with my last stint being in Fort Wayne. And then after 6.5 years of doing that, thought it was time to kind of cross over to the PR marketing side. Best decision I ever made. Yes. And being able to work in government, nonprofit, over the course of my PR career, and now doing my own thing now, kind of in those similar spaces.
That's awesome. Well, welcome, welcome, welcome. So I'm so glad to have you both here. So I do have a question to get us started. It's a pretty broad question, but I'm going to cast it out there anyway, and you can answer it, any way you want to. But if I were to ask you, what does Black history mean to you? How would you describe it? How would you answer that?
I think for me, Black History Month is a moment of celebration to celebrate our uniqueness, who we are as a people, and to celebrate what we've overcome. It's also for me an opportunity to tell our stories our way, and really have people really understand who we are as a people, and how people can come together to kind of help us in a way of so many different facets, so many different things. So overall, for me, it's a moment of celebration, and really recognizing who we are as a people, and moving forward, from, as Denise talked about in the intro, those traumas that we've experienced.
Very good. Dr. Fletcher, you want to pick up on that?
So for me, I don't do the month. I'm Black 365
days.
days a
Yes.
year.
Yes.
So
Yes. Yes.
every
Yes.
day is Black History Month for me. I'm just Black all over. And as I tell my father, I get blacker by the second. But for me, and I agree with the piece on trauma, not necessarily focusing on those traumas. Oh Lord,
Girl,
but focusing.
okay.
That was my
Black 365, y'all. There it is.
Thank you.
My car is doing what it wants to do. But moving beyond that trauma, but focusing just on us, our culture, our music, just the little things. The fact, I was talking to a sister earlier today, and she was watching me speak, and she knew exactly what I was thinking on the inside, because as a Black woman, we can communicate just through facial expressions. And so it's little things like that that and where does that come from? Where are those things rooted? So that celebration is there, absolutely, but it doesn't have to be the big things. It doesn't have to be Garrett A. Morgan, inventing the traffic light. It's just every day. We are here, we are living, we are breathing, we are loving.
I love it.
So that's what it is for me.
I love it. I agree with you. I do. There are sometimes I just sit down and I'll look at my girlfriends or look at, close friends, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I love Black people. Like, I just love us. I love what we represent, the things that we do, our uniqueness, our food. I love us when they make me mad. I love, I love us, like, when they make me sad, but I just absolutely love us because we just bring so much to the table. So thank you both for answering that, because and I remember actually back in the day, McDonald's did a campaign called 365 Days Black, and they celebrated Black history 365 days. And so I encourage all of us, let's live it 365 days out of the year, because it doesn't go away on March 1st.
Right.
We walk around with it, and it doesn't start on February 1st. Right. So, just so I want to talk about this little piece of journalism that you tapped into most recently, LaMar. You said in your introduction that you were a former reporter. You were working up in the Fort Wayne area before you came over to the real side, the light side, the PR side. But you tapped in to those journalistic skills of yours and you wrote an article. And I
Mhm.
happened upon that article. You sent it to me. You
Yep.
sent me that article, and I thought it was really good. It was the triumphs and trials of Black History Month, where you encouraged readers to celebrate Black History Month. And so I want you to talk a bit about that article and why that message was so important to you in telling that
Mhm.
story. And you also highlighted research and why research was so important. And so I want you to talk a bit about that. And then Dr. Fletcher, I'm going to come to you because you are our resident researcher. And so I want you to talk about the importance of research and some of the stories that you've uncovered through research.
Mhm. Yeah, so I did this article actually inspired by a friend of mine. He had a call to me and he said, "Hey, LaMar, I'm writing this article about our company is taking some time off or some time to kind of it was for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. So the company was taking that time off, and he wanted, he's writing this message on behalf of the president of his organization, and uh, he had kind of sent me some details of kind of what the messaging was. And I said, I feel like we can add a little bit more, be a little bit more intentional in how we're saying this, and it being more than just a day off. And so helping him craft that message, it inspired me because I was like, okay, next month is actually Black History Month. And I just as we talked about, we're Black 365 days a year, right? So what message do I want to share in that space, right? And how we want people to not only see us and recognize us, but also do your part to understand who we are as a people. And so that
Mhm.
inspired me to write my op-ed that was in the Indianapolis Business Journal and inside
Indiana
Indiana
business.
Business,
Hmm.
and it really highlighted, not only do we have, making history, and we continue to make history um, within our community, but it's to also to take a look at some of the disadvantages we have as a people, and how you can do your part to help move those barriers, right? And so I really tapped into um, talking about what are some of those barriers that we face, and um, how people can be active in learning about our community. Doing your research about who we are, how did we get here? Some of those idiosyncrasies of some of the things that we do as a people. How we talked about music and how we just have that language with one another, is very precious and dear to us. Um, and then also just calling out the community on making sure that if you are in power or in authority to bring about change, to be a change agent for our community, don't be scared to do that. Because my thing is, don't celebrate our histories when you're not willing to help with the injustices, right? So if you are seeing injustices, you're not doing things to kind of help with that. So that was kind of my article and my piece, and what that entailed, and really hope that people read that and take to heart that message. And that was the inspiration for that piece.
That's awesome. Thank you for tapping into that side of you and, and taking the step to do that because a lot of times people don't, they
Mhm.
don't, they wonder like we should do a fill in the blank or somebody ought to, but if we don't take control of the narrative, then no one else will. So thank you
Right.
for that. And so, Dr. Fletcher, I want you to talk a bit about research because you are relentless and you are fearless and courageous in your quest to make sure that our stories are told accurately, honestly, and with integrity. And so, I'd like for you to talk a little bit about that and the work that you've done over the years.
Um, so as a historian, um, of Black women specifically, I'm a Black woman researching Black women,
Hmm.
making connections between past and present. I just had a conversation earlier about intergenerational trauma, and the ways in which our ancestors have experienced certain things, and we have inherited certain responses certain aversions to things because of that trauma, but we're often not privy
Mhm.
to a full understanding of these things, whether they're good, whether they're bad, it really doesn't matter. And
Mhm.
so my work always centers on Black women, but specifically in my work, when I say my work, I mean my work, my research, my forthcoming book, my academic work, not necessarily related to the museum.
Mhm.
But Black women, yes, we know about the horrors of slavery, the horrors of domestic labor, and all of these things. And the issue when doing research is actually putting your hands on that tangible evidence of these experiences, because oftentimes Black people are silenced in the archive. And so there's plenty of people who are writing about us,
Mhm.
but not always us being allowed to hear our own voices. And I mean, everyday people. And
Mhm.
so my work, of course, focuses on the confinement of Black women, whether it be in prison, jail, workhouses, whatever. And so traumatic spaces, but the
Mhm.
documents that are coming out of that time period, they're created by the state, and
Mhm.
the state's not going to tell those stories. How did this Black woman end up in prison? What was going on? What pains did she have to tolerate before winding up in this space? But then you also have other stories that are often overlooked, or unheard of. And I'm not the only scholar who does this, but when we talk about things like respectability politics, and what's respectable, what's not respectable, we like to talk about club women and all of these things.
Mhm.
But there were women in the 19th, Black women in the 19th century, early 20th century, who were numbers runners. They were sex workers. They were uh, hustlers. They were all sorts of things, and they're doing things that A, give them their financial independence, but
Mhm.
B, they're also exploring the world, redefining respectability for themselves, redefining confinement for themselves, but also redefining pleasure for themselves. And that in and of itself is, we've moved beyond trauma.
Mhm.
I need to make a way for me.
Right.
And we don't often hear about those everyday stories because in the archive, a lot of times it's silenced.
Mhm.
Whether it's a newspaper article, whether it's an estate sale, whether it's a marriage certificate. And so taking the time to sit and piece those puzzles together to
Mhm.
present the narrative, it's a labor of love. It has to
Mhm.
be, because it takes forever to do.
Mhm.
It's not something you do overnight. But that's why I do what I do.
You remind me so much of my mother. When I was a kid, my mother had this desire to write a book that told the stories about Black women in the Midwest. But my
Hmm.
mother was a teacher, but not a scholar of history. And so
Hmm.
she literally, I think I get my bird dog abilities from her. She literally did her research and found an African American history professor at Purdue, Dr. Darlene Clark Hines, and she
Hmm.
reached, Dr. Hines, and so
Oh, I do.
she reached out to Dr. Hines and told her about this project she wanted to do, and said she wanted Dr. Hines to do it. And Dr. Hines said, "That's not my area of history. I don't do
Hmm.
that." And so my mother said, "Are you Black?" And she said, "Yes, ma'am, I am." And she said, "Are you a woman?" And she said, "Yes, ma'am, I am." And she said, "Well, then what's the problem?" And the next thing I knew, the two of them were driving all through the Midwest, meeting with these women, crawling in basements, crawling in attics, pulling down boxes, and just looking at all this history. And so the Black Women of the Middle West Project spans 1890 to 1984 and is a
Hmm.
collection of stories about Black women. And here's the thing about the work that you do the writing that you've done, LaMar, the work that my mom did, you never know who you are inspiring. So, of course, I was away at college while my mother was doing this work, working with Dr. Hines on this research project, but my sister was in the backseat of the car riding around with them. So now my sister is a professor of African American studies because she believes our stories need to be told. So
Mhm.
kudos to you all for the work that you do and the commitment that you've made to making sure our history is preserved and it's told the way that it should be. That's very, very important. Very important.
Absolutely. And I love the fact that, especially the story of the Black woman. Okay. When you hear the phrase, the power of a Black woman, I mean, it sometimes just leaves me speechless. I mean, you think about our moms, our grandmothers, the things that they do for our families, our communities, right? Um, there is something in that. There's something beautiful in that.
Mhm.
And just hearing those stories, the power of a Black woman is just something about it.
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate that. So,
Indeed.
so LaMar, I've got a question for you because you are a communicator. Your background is in the media, and the media has really shaped a lot of the narrative about Black people, male and female, young and
Mhm.
old. And so, what can communicators do to change the narrative, to shift that narrative? After George Floyd, we saw a bit of a intentionality of the media to be a bit more, to try and be a bit more balanced in their reporting.
Mhm.
Um, you know, okay. So,
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
what do communicators need to do? PR professionals and journalists need to do to help shift this narrative. It can't be done overnight because
No,
it's rooted in so many systemic issues. But what can we do here and now?
one of the things I will say is continue to call them out. When the narrative is not right, you call them
Mhm,
out, plain
mhm,
as day. Um, because to your point, when I was a reporter, I was a TV reporter, 6.5 years, and being the Black male reporter, it was always oh, well, let's send him to the crime story. Let's send him to the
Mhm.
shooting,
mhm,
and I'm like, I don't want to do that. There's more to me than me, sending me out to the crime story all the crime story all the time. So as PR professionals, we have to continue to call that out,
mhm,
and really let the media know. We have those relationships with those media folks, right? And
mhm,
we're sometimes in the same spaces with them. And it's one of those things where you have to call them out and say, hey, listen, this story right here, the narrative is all wrong, you
mhm,
know. But then as PR professionals, we have so many different toolkits and different things in our arsenal, right? If the media can't get it right, we could tell our story our way, right? So
mhm,
there's always social media, there's blogs, there are so many different ways that we can tell our story. Because I think right now in this space, especially after the George Floyd situation, a
mhm,
lot of people try to be a little bit more intentional, right? With the air
mhm,
quotes. Um, I had a friend of mine. She says, sometimes I feel like DEI could just be the flavor of the month.
mhm,
And she's just
Yep.
like, and people have called her to do like DEI communications and things like that. And she said, no, I don't want to do that because I don't want to be pigeonholed into that because for that
mhm,
company, that's the flavor of the month for now, right?
mhm,
Mhm.
mhm,
So again, it goes back to that saying we said we're Black 365, and so
right,
we need to be able to control that narrative as much as we can. We need to call it out, and if the media is not willing to cover that, we tell our story our way. Again,
mhm,
we got blogs and podcasts and op-eds, and there are so many ways that we can do that. And as we flood those avenues, the
mhm,
media eventually will have to shift.
mm,
So it might be a point where we just continue to tell our stories our way in the different mediums that we have.
mhm. Thank you for that. That's so, so true. We have to control the narrative and not let the narrative control us, which I think so many of us, and I think sometimes people just don't know how, or don't think that they have a voice or that they can be effective. But I think that's because sometimes we're not informed. Like I know sometimes, Dr. Fletcher, when I'm with you, I just sit in awe when I listen to you talk because I'm like, I didn't know that. I didn't know that, and then you're kind of embarrassed that you didn't know that. But you don't, we as Black people will never want to admit that we don't know something. And so I guess I mean, we don't. We will go along until we get called out. Like, girl, you don't know what I'm talking about, do you? Like,
The
Mhm.
truth.
I
The
don't.
truth.
But it
That's
sounded
facts.
real good what you were saying. So
That's
I
facts.
guess, so I guess my next question is for you, Dr. Fletcher. What do we as individuals and what do organizations need to do in order to inform themselves so that they can change that narrative? Because if you're not informed, you can't change anything.
Well, I think people need to want to be informed, and
Mm,
that's the problem right there. You have spaces that are so comfortable with the way things have been done, or they don't want to ruffle any feathers, or they don't want to do this or that. You have to
mhm,
want to be informed. That was one of the things um, that I always had to keep in the back of my mind, front of my mind, and left of my mind, whatever. When I worked in the prison system, I can only help those who want to be helped. I can only
mm,
do but so much. And even then, I would always tell folks, it's not up to me. I just have an opportunity. Either you're going to take
right.
the opportunity and do what you need to do, or you're not. And that's not my choice to be made.
Mhm,
Um, and that's key. You have to want to do better. And that the appearance of wanting to do better in many institutions typically appears at the cost of additional labor for Black people.
mhm,
Oh well, you can sit on this DEAI committee, or you can do, or we can do this because we have this Black person who works here. That's not the work, boo.
right,
That
right,
That
that's not
part.
right,
That
that's not what that's not how you do this, right?
right,
And
right.
so I think that that's what's key for the institution. Is this what you want to do, or are you comfortable in your white supremacy? Are you comfortable in your racial complacency? And that's an internal check. That's a morale check. But until institutions decide that this is what they are really going to be about, um, it's a waiting game. Honestly, you have to be genuine about
Mhm,
the work.
hmm
Uh,
I
so
think Dr. Fletcher, real quick, you hit on something, especially for something for me internally, as a Black man. Um, I'm in these kind of C-level, uh, C-suite level type positions. And it's almost like I had to check myself because, there's this narrative that, as a Black man, you want to make sure that you don't, you're not aggressive, or when you're speaking to people,
mm,
how am I talking to this person? I don't want them to perceive me as the angry Black man, or that
hmm
I'm ready to fight. So then I would check myself, am I being too Black? Am I being Black enough? Am I, and so now that I'm out of my own, I've now kind of just gotten to that point where it's like, okay, if you can't accept me for me, that's
mhm.
that's
your
it.
problem.
That's on
That
your,
has
yeah,
nothing
That's
to do
it.
yeah,
with me,
yeah,
Hmm
and
yeah.
so you're right. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I had to go through that throughout my career,
And you will
having to
hmm
continue
check
to.
myself. Yeah.
You will continue to because the older you get, the more courageous your mouth gets. So it will like
Say that.
it will get a little bolder and a little stronger as you get more,
Hmm
more wrinkles around the eyes and more, your sea legs even underneath you further. So get ready. Get ready. So
That's
good point.
real. That's real, and I experience that every single day.
Hmm.
Mm.
And there are times where I get so tired. Look, I'm taking a mental health day because what you're not going to do is drive me crazy. Not gonna
Right,
happen.
right,
Mm-mm,
Hmm.
right.
mm-mm.
Um, I'm gonna shift gears for a second because I have a question for the two of you all. I've been doing a lot of reflecting lately and like a lot of internal reflection as well and external too. And so if you could sit down and have a conversation with a civil rights activist of our past, who would it be? And what would you say to them?
One person?
Okay, two.
Oh man.
We only have a few more minutes left. That's why I gotta limit you.
Oh, my.
Book 2, chapter 10. Book 5, chapter 3. That could go on
Lord,
forever.
Lord have mercy. My first one would be Brother Malcolm.
Yes.
I don't
Yes.
know what I would say to him. I don't know if I'd even be able to say anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I don't know, but Brother Malcolm would be one.
Mm-hmm.
Let me go ahead, because let me keep thinking about this other person. That's a big question.
That is a big question.
Selena.
Shout out to Selena, y'all. Shout out
Right.
to
That's Selena.
My person would probably have to be Dr. King, because I will want to know that man has so much patience to kind of go through all the stuff that he went through for the movement.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing that he's a pastor, and I'm pretty sure he really relied on his faith to kind of get through those moments.
Mm-hmm.
But I would really want to know from him, when you wanted to like bust somebody upside their head, when you wanted to really, go on attack, how did you pull yourself in to keep pushing and to show a little bit of reserve, right? To keep the movement going. Brother Malcolm, he was like, let's go. Like,
Right.
let's go. Let's do this, right? Let's do this. Right. And Dr. King was just the very opposite of that. And so I would really want to kind of dissect that. How did you show so much restraint and doing the stuff that you did, knowing the stuff that we were going through during that time?
Toward the end, he was more like Malcolm
Mm-hmm.
than he was the polar opposite. But I would also say that, like, for a second person, it would be Fannie Lou Hamer.
That's who I had. That's my girl.
With Fannie Lou Hamer for a whole host of reasons. For obviously, her work with voting rights, but then also just to share space and time to speak to the journey of reproductive justice for Black women.
Yes.
There are others, but those are the two that come to mind first.
I actually have a painting of Fannie Lou Hamer in my office. I have a painting of Fannie Lou and a bust of Madam C.J. Walker that I kind of give a nod to every day when I come to my home office. So two amazing women. We don't have much time left, and so I'm just going to give you all a quick rapid fire question, just kind of what comes to mind when I ask you this. But if you could personally, I have two questions for you. The first one is, if you could personally thank a Black inventor for their invention that you use to this day and has made your life a little bit easier, who would that inventor be, and what is the invention?
My mother, for inventing me.
Period. Yes, Lord.
I can't even buzz you on that one. Okay, Mama Holiday.
Yes, Lord.
Mama Holiday, period.
Mama Holiday.
I'm right with you on that one. How about that?
I can't even mess with you on that one. We're bringing you to us too.
We have. That's it.
That's it. That's okay. Mic drop.
Okay, yeah, that was. Dr. Fletcher, anything you'd like to add?
Um, I would probably say there's a black woman by the name of I think her name is Marie Britton. She Marie Van Britton Brown is her name.
Mhm.
She invented and patented the home security system
Love
in
her.
1966. So
Love
every
her.
day I turn on my alarm, it's because of a black woman.
Yes, thank
Y'all
you.
see that ring notification?
That's it.
Mhm.
That is
Yep.
because of a black woman.
Love it.
Amen. 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 Well, I had another question for y'all, but I'm gonna go ahead and throw it out there just really quickly in the last couple of minutes. If you had to pick one word, or maybe two, because Dr. Fletcher said just one, so if you had to pick two words that you think Black Americans struggle with today, and then explain what we need to do to overcome that. That's how I'd like to close this out. What do we struggle
Mm.
with, and how do we need to overcome it?
Division
Mm-hmm.
is my
Vision as a
word.
race.
Mm.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
Because in I would argue that I am a Pan-Africanist. Black is black, is black is black.
mhm. That's
And we don't, we would do ourselves a favor by, yes, we live in different spaces. Yes, we have different customs, cultures, languages, absolutely. But at the end of the day, there is a shared history, there is a shared connection, and we would do better by having that connected community as opposed to seeing ourselves as Black Americans, Black Britons, Caribbeans.
mhm.
We just black,
Just
and
black.
black is beautiful.
Mhm.
Mhm. I love
That's
it.
it.
I love it. LaMar, anything
Mm.
to close us
That's
out?
good. That's good. The word that comes to mind for me is access. We need
Okay.
access,
Mm-hmm.
right? Whether it's housing, healthcare, um, whatever it is, we need access. And if we can't get it from whom we supposed to get it from, we
Mm-hmm.
need to create our own access within our own
Hmm.
community because there's a lot of people that have a lot of different talents and access to different things. And it's time for us to rely on ourselves and our own community and build up our own community
Mm-hmm.
and create that access.
I agree. I agree. I hate that we have to stop. I hate because we could go on and on and on and on, but I think Selena would get me. So I'm gonna have to cut us off here. But I cannot thank you enough, both of you, Dr. Charlene Fletcher, LaMar Holiday, for joining me for this conversation about how they see us. This has been more than I anticipated. I knew it would be fun. I knew it would be informative, and I knew it would be powerful. And I can just check every single box. It was all of that and then some. And I hope that everyone watching us gleaned something new and is inspired to go out and do something to celebrate 365 days Black, because we are Black people every single day of the year.
Hmm.
That's right. That's right. So, thank you so much for watching this episode of How They See Us. I would be remiss if I did not give a special shout out and a thank you to Selena Coles, who is our producer and account manager here at Hurt Strategies. She's the one that makes all this happen. I just read the notes and show up, and she does all the work to put it together and all the work behind the scenes. I'm trying to do that so she don't get me for going off script. So thank you, Selena, for all that you do to make How They See Us the best that it can possibly be, and all that you do for Hurt Strategies. So thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we'll see you next month when it's Women's History Month, and we've got a dynamic lineup, so you don't want to miss us. Make sure you tune in. Thank you.